More at paulharrell.com.
Program, it's hour number 2. Congratulations, you found the intersection of conservative ideas and reality. We're building a liberty machine. The phone number, call us, text us, 870-275-9799. I want to welcome to the program a man by the name of Bobby Long. Bobby, welcome, sir.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Yes, sir. Glad that you're with us. Now, this time, 24 hours ago, we were playing your speech. Bobby Long is a Jonesboro alderman or city councilman. What ward do you represent?
Ward 6, position 1.
Okay. When did you first hear that the Jonesboro City Council was going to try to do the Municipal League's bidding and pass a resolution urging Asa Hutchinson to call a special session to increase or create a new internet tax?
About, I guess, three to 4 days prior to the meeting. You know, they'd already done one resolution before that was going to our federal our senators.
Okay.
Yeah, so they'd already done one, and I was the sole opposition to that resolution. I wasn't as prepared as I was the other night, though.
Okay.
And when I figured that out, you know, I thought, yeah, I've got to speak up against
the
that.
sole opposition. Then last night, though, it did, or two nights ago, it passed 8-4. So you and 3 other colleagues voted against that. Who are those 3 other colleagues?
Gosh, I can't remember offhand.
Okay, well, that's okay. We can get it later.
The first time, though, I was the only one that voted no for the first one. So I think we're making headway.
Mm-hmm.
You know, apparently something I said or something that they had realized in between the last one and this one, you know, got them to come around to reason, you know, and vote against this resolution.
I think maybe one of the reasons is your side comment there when they got ready to vote, or I think it was just kind of a transition. It was after the mayor's comments, who's supportive of this measure, and you said, I just want to make the point that this resolution or this idea failed in the General Assembly in the last session just a few months ago. What do you make of that when you have state representatives from Northeast Arkansas like Dan Sullivan, Brant Smith, Jack Ladyman, Dwight Tosh voting against the internet sales tax, and then other elected representatives over the same area are now trying to undermine the people's representatives?
You know, here's the thing, and I tell this to my kids, I tell it to my wife all the time. When you try to make sense out of an unreasonable position, you're going to drive yourself crazy. You know, so Brant Smith and Dan Sullivan, those guys that voted against that, they know, because I get their Facebook posts and things like that, and they do have a pulse, I think, on the community, and they know what the people want. And it was even reflected in the polls that I cited the other night. I have absolutely no idea how an elected official, knowing that if it was going to go to the vote, to the people for a vote, and it would be just obliterated. It would be. There would be, just like the last time they tried to increase the tax on the people. It failed.
Yeah,
in Jonesboro.
Terribly.
Yes.
Yeah, massively. Embarrassingly so.
Yes. So why in the world would an elected official vote to support and push forward something that they know the people that they represent don't want? I'm not a I'm not a career politician. This was my first stab at
Tell us your background. So your first run for office and you won the first time. All right. So tell us what made you want to be a city councilman.
Gosh, ever since I was old enough, my dad was like that, and my dad is like that. You know, if there's something that needs to be done, he just goes and does it. You know, if there's something that needs to be done, he steps up and takes over if no one else will. And he's always been that, and I saw that as something I grew up with. So when I got older, you know, I was always, you know, if something needed to be done, no one else would do it, I just do it. And I still am like that. You know, I don't mind taking the reins. I don't mind being a voice. I don't mind speaking out for those things that I feel passionate about. And so, you know, that's what I did. And when we moved back to Jonesboro multiple years ago, decades ago, I know that this was where I was going to raise my family. And at that point, I knew good and well that I wanted to be a part of how this city grew
Of
and how
course.
this city was
Yeah,
going to go.
there are a lot of bad ideas out there.
There is. And I thought, you know, if I could just gather the support, I said, I knew there's people out there that thought like I did, that had my same values, my same convictions, and my same beliefs. And I thought, you know what, I'm just going to give this a shot and see what happens.
Yeah, that's good. What was your background before? So what do you do now?
Before I came, well, when I came back to Jonesboro, I was executive director of a PHO, a physician hospital organization, where we contracted managed care contracts for hospitals and physician panels. I've been an HR director for the last 15 years. And done a lot of other things, you know, in that capacity. And a matter of fact, you know.
How did you get your limited government views? I'm curious because, you know, just no offense, but.
The maintenance of a free society is a very difficult and complicated thing. And it requires a self-denying ordinance of the most extreme kind. It requires a willingness to put up with temporary evils on the basis of the subtle and sophisticated understanding that if you step in to do something about them, you not only may make them worse, but you will spread your tentacles and get bad results elsewhere.
I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers. We lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
You're listening to the Paul Harrell Program, brought to you by Conduit Media Group.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the program. Thanks so much for being with us. My name is Paul, and you have found the intersection of conservative ideas and reality where we are building a liberty machine. And one of the ways you can contribute to that, if you want, is to call us or text us. Let us know what's going on. The number 870-275-9799. That's 870-275-9799. All right. Sorry, just got an interesting text message, a very interesting one just a second ago. I want to talk a little bit about, of course we will, we're going to talk about the D.C. healthcare law, the D.C. healthcare repeal, everything that's going on with that. The latest news that we have on that is that they're now trying for a skinny repeal, right? Which would just be, you know, the individual mandate and things like that. They haven't had as much success. I mean, for example, this was at, I guess, 2:52 Eastern Time. Obamacare repeal bill fails in the Senate. The Senate on Wednesday rejected an amendment to gut Obamacare without a replacement ready to go. It was the identical bill from 2015 that did pass Congress. Senators voted 45 to 55 on the measure, with 7 Republicans and all Democrats voting no. The Republicans voting no were Senators Shelley Moore Capito of West Virginia, Susan Collins of Maine, Dick Heller of Nevada, John McCain of Arizona, Rob Portman of Ohio, Lamar Alexander of Tennessee, and Lisa Murkowski of Alaska. Only Susan Collins voted against the measure in 2015. So we, it's now basically, confirmed that there are Republicans who they don't really get it. And I'm sure many people, we need to have a whole conversation about John McCain, right? Because is it just me, or are there some people that operate under this idea that he's above criticism because he fought for the country? And obviously he certainly has the medical diagnosis, the surgery he had. It's tragic. Everybody, I'm sure, wishes him a speedy recovery. But I just get a feeling that there's some individuals that they kind of cave into this, well, because that's happened, because of certain circumstances, whatever they may be, we're supposed to kind of look the other way and just ignore the votes that you're taking that are aiding the destruction of this country. Just a thought. Anyway, I'm sure we'll talk about that at a later date. There may be new developments. Who knows? Again, the phone number, 870-275-9799 is the telephone number. All right. Something's been happening in Arkansas that's amazing, and we've talked about it many times. But I wanted to revisit this because last week our whiteboard talked about how we've got to run it till it passes. And what that effectively means is there's some political establishment that is not in tune with the people. And I say not in tune with the people is because the idea of running it till it passes means that you're having difficulty getting something through that continues to fail over and over and over and over again. Specifically, we're talking about Arkansas here. And it produces what I've been talking about as an us versus them mentality. Our whiteboard this week talks about how it's the government versus the voters. The government bureaucratic arms, the lobbyist arms. You could compare a lot of this to what's going on in Washington, D.C., by the way. Ignoring the will of the people, ignoring elections. I mean, Republicans are doing that right now. But in terms of when the Arkansas government wants something really, really bad, they find a way to get it. They find a way to get it. I'll give you an example. I mean, the mentality is so... The mentality is of such a state that even the media doesn't really believe that legislators have the power to fight these predetermined outcomes, these predetermined results that the powers that be want. A classic example of this is back during the budget showdown when you had a certain amount of senators in the Arkansas Senate who were holding up the entire budget because they wanted to defund Obamacare Arkansas Works. And they had a real chance because you had to get to 75%. You had to get to a 75% threshold vote, and they had a real chance. And the people in the media, I mean, they didn't really take it seriously. They were just like, oh, well, somebody's going to cave eventually because there's just no way. And, of course, you had two senators that did cave. And they went along with a scheme to allow a line-item veto by the governor that many think was unconstitutional. But then they went back and they covered their tracks during the next special session. Anyway, there's a lot of that was a really, really fishy move. But I'm just telling you, this idea that the people's representatives would do something to thwart these predetermined outcomes, these massive goals of dependency or government growth or tax increases. Arkansas is just not used to having something like that take place. When you have the people's representatives, for example, over in Tennessee, when they don't even let their own Republican governors plan to grow government out of a committee a couple of years ago and effectively shut down a special session before it even begins. Can you imagine something like that happening here in Arkansas? I can't. There's just a different mentality. And so what we've been witnessing here is kind of remarkable. What we're witnessing here is kind of remarkable. We're witnessing the people's will being thwarted by the Municipal League and the Highway Commission on two separate issues. They didn't have the votes. They didn't get the amount of votes they needed for the gas tax. And now that they don't have the vote, in the session ended and everybody went home and we think, we stopped them from raising our gas taxes. We stopped them from taking more money from us. We stopped them from growing government. What does the Highway Commission do? The Highway Commission says, we're going to try to put it on the ballot anyway. We're going to do another means, which it's perfectly legal to go out and get signatures and try to put it on the ballot. But the rhetoric that you now hear, well, the General Assembly, maybe they'll care about roads someday when people start dying in the streets. it's going to get the whole highway situation is going to get worse. Just in terms of the Highway Commission versus the Arkansas legislature. And I'll tell you how Ace is going to spin it. He's going to say, well, we've got a few minority holdouts who are obstructionists. They're going to start throwing around that word. On the internet sales tax and on the gas tax, they're obstructionists. You're obstructing things. You're just in the way of progress and that sort of thing. But we as Arkansans should at least take note of how remarkable it is that we have government bureaucracies going against the will of the people blatantly because they stand, in my opinion, to gain more. They stand to gain more from continued government growth. You can see it with the Municipal League. You can see it with the Highway Commission. So I thought I would just kind of take a trip down memory lane. And I wanted to rehash for you some of the arguments that were had during this last legislative session. Let's take the Municipal League first. Municipal League, the lobbying arm of the municipalities of Arkansas. They're now getting city councils to pass resolutions begging ASA to call a special session to raise your taxes and to create a new unconstitutional sales tax on the internet for out-of-state sellers. And here's just some of the debate that went on.
Let me tell you about the internet tax. So let me just explain this to you, okay? These companies where you buy stuff, whether it's from Zappos.com or Jet.com, they're going to send you a statement on all the purchases that you've made throughout the year.
That was a bad idea.
And it will tell you how much money you have spent with VictoriaSecret.com or wherever you shop.
That's the example. That's State Representative Dan Douglas. He used that on the House floor. This is this is HB 1388 he's presenting, and it did pass the House, but then it went on to never be heard into the Senate because I don't think they were very comfortable with the Department of Finance and Administration showing up to people's doors saying, hey, we know what you bought on Victoria's Secret. You owe us a use tax that you haven't paid this year. I don't think anybody would be too happy about just getting an extra, I don't know, $200-300 bill at the end of every year saying, hey, you owe this.
Okay? They're going to help you in your record keeping. This form, this notification that they send out at the end of the year, they also send a copy to DF&A. It's just like a 1099 that you send out to employees.
So that's Dan Douglas. Dan Douglas was the face of the internet sales tax and the gas tax. Dan Douglas, then the rhetoric got heated as they kept running it and running it and running. I mean, they ran this bill like 4, 5, 6 times in the committee. SB 140, the other internet sales tax bill that was sponsored by Jake Files, doing Walmart's bidding. The head of the Revenue and Tax Committee that has, been in the news for all the liens on his property, the liens against his, business. And then there was that weird story that still hasn't been explained from the contractors that said that Jake Files forged bids in their name. That was strange. That was real strange. Anyway, that was his bill, but Dan Douglas was the House member because, he's not a senator, or he's not a House member, so he had to have somebody run it. And then the rhetoric started to get really heated when they couldn't pass it. They started threatening.
We see what the budget is.
Yeah, the budget.
Everybody wants, or a lot of people want to cut taxes. Other people want to fund certain projects. We have to have money to do that. Mm-hmm. We don't have a goose that laid the golden egg. If you have special projects, if you want to fund pre-K, you have to vote for this bill.
There it is.
If you want to fund highways, you could vote for this bill.
This was just some of the rhetoric, folks, that was going on. If you want to fund pre-K, you got to vote for the internet sales tax. If you want to fund highways, you got to vote for the internet sales tax. I mean, you understand now what a bind was when less than a week after they adjourned session, the governor had to cut the budget $113 million. We kind of, it's like, maybe you really did. And then when the revenue came in from Amazon voluntarily collecting the tax, they immediately spend the money. If you have any kind of, just an inkling of a memory at all, this smells very fishy. And it's the farthest thing from limited government conservatism and fiscal responsibility that you can get. If you want to fund pre-K, you got to vote for this bill. If you want to fund... Now, notice what he didn't say is if you want to fund Medicaid expansion, you got to vote for this bill. And that's the real deception that's going on here. Why don't we have the money for roads? Why don't we have the money for pre-K, according to what he's saying? Why don't we have the money? Well, it's because our priorities have shifted, and we adopted what the Obama administration told us to adopt. Their priorities became Arkansas Republican priorities, and they're being defended by ASA to this day.
If you want to do tax cuts, here's the money.
If you want to do tax cuts, we got to actually raise your taxes in order to give you tax cuts.
We have to decide how to divvy it up. In total, this could amount to $150 million a year or more.
Taken from us.
Main Street in Arkansas today is bleeding, and they are bleeding because they are at a disadvantage to the online retailers who have chosen to do business in this state. Now, people say, what are we going to do if this passes and we have all that money? That's for us to decide.
Oh, yeah. I'm so glad that you didn't get what you wanted. But what's the Municipal League doing? It's remarkable. Now the Municipal League they're on the Dan Douglas bandwagon, apparently, State Representative Dan Douglas from Bentonville. And now they're saying, hey, we really need to get this internet sales tax passed, even though the people said no. The people's representatives said no. Here we go. We're going to take a break. We got more. We got more of this. You don't want to miss it. I thought I would give you a first-hand look at just the debate that was had and how it was defeated, and yet they're still going to try to run this until it passes. Back in a minute. Arkansas small businesses are tired of taxes that are too high and regulations that work as obstacles to small business success. If you own a small business, it's time to take action. Now, I'm not talking about the local chambers of commerce. I'm talking about an organization that's actually run by small business owners and are fighting for small businesses right here in the state of Arkansas. They're called Conduit for Action, and they're on your side. Conduit for Action is here not to get something from the government, but to be left alone by the government. Think of them as your personal advocate for limited government at the Capitol in Little Rock. If you're tired of all the politicians talking with no results and ready for action, start outsourcing your government affair needs with Conduit for Action. Go now to conduitforaction.org and click on Contact Us on the right side of the page. That's conduitforaction.org, and stand up for small business in Arkansas.
Conservative legislation killed?
Or do you need policies enacted that ensure government growth?
Then you need to get
Nephewed. Hi, I'm nephew number 1 of uncle, nephew, and nephew, attorneys at law. I'm not a lawyer, but I am a senator.
And I'm nephew number 2, and I am a lawyer and also a senator.
Are you the victim of a recent accident in which the voters in your community mistakenly elected a limited government conservative who is now actually implementing the ideas he or she campaigned on?
That's right, nephew number 1. Don't be a victim of democratic elections any longer. At Uncle, Nephew, and Nephew, we are committed to killing limited government legislation and promoting bills that increase the size of government by using any tool at our disposal.
Because sometimes the truth of the matter is, principles get in the way of pragmatism.
Just listen to some of our great testimonials.
Ever since I've been using the nephews, all my special interests have been served. As long as you make sure your contract says lobbying services are prohibited, then the legal services of Uncle, Nephew, and Nephew are legal. Trust me. Put the nephews on them.
Came out of nowhere. I was blindsided last election cycle when my well-funded and paid-for politician lost to some grassroots limited government voters. But then I hired the nephews, and they killed all the conservative policies the voters wanted. I got nephewed.
I got nephewed too, and so can you.
Uncle, nephew, and nephew will accept compensation via campaign contributions.
Put the nephews on them.
PHP Parody.
The Declaration will be a triumph. I tell you, a triumph. If I was ever sure of anything, I'm sure of that. A triumph. And if it isn't, we've still got 4 days left to think of something else.
It's interesting, as I think those parodies are more fun for Joe and I to make than they actually are for the listeners to sit through them. Phone number 870-275-9799. That's 870-275-9799. Here's more in these flashback clips from Dan Douglas a few months ago trying to raise your taxes. And all the Republican in leadership, well, most of them in leadership, were on board with it.
But I ask you, what are we going to do if we do not pass it and we lose our brick and mortar stores, our stores that employ our citizens in our towns?
Now, I want you to consider how ridiculous this argument is. He's saying if we don't have an internet sales tax, that we will lose our stores. The flip side of that is he's saying if we do have an internet sales tax, we will keep our stores. That doesn't make any sense. How is an internet sales tax going to keep stores open?
Stores that pay property tax to support our schools and businesses, and they are closing. It has been reported that there are over 2,100 jobs this last year that were lost in local brick and mortar stores. They're closing the limited, whatever they sell, I don't know. They have done away they're doing away with their brick and mortar stores and going totally online. We have to preserve our communities, our businesses, and our way of life.
These are our way of life. I don't want your life. Our way of life, hey, look, if the internet gets super popular, I mean, the free market can do, it's pretty popular. If it gets super popular, it's pretty much the most popular thing that exists is the internet. I would just say, okay, if the trend continues and the market does say, hey, you know, brick and mortar stores are going away, then that's something that's a market force, right? And there's a legitimate debate to be had about, okay, well, you will have less money coming in your local businesses and you know your local governments is what I'm trying to say. That is a certain debate, but it's a separate debate because he's having this debate, again, saying that if the tax exists, the stores and the jobs will somehow be saved. And I know we're kind of beating a dead horse here, but how in the world does an internet sales tax stop people from thinking that the internet is a convenience for shopping?
Let me tell you real quick, I'll make one little quick story about a very innovative business. Boy, they had a great model. They came up with this great idea. Let's let people shop at home. Let's let them decide what they want to purchase in the convenience and comfort of their own home, and let's let them order from home. And then we will deliver the product to their doorstep.
Yep.
Great business model. What's that sound like?
Yep.
Sound like Amazon? Sounds like our online retailers right now? Mm-hmm. That was Sears Roebuck and Company.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he kind of, sometimes he made arguments that were ridiculous and actually worked against him. I think that was one of those times. That's State Representative Dan Douglas. Thankfully his arguments were either ignored or just not listened to. And they didn't pass the internet sales tax. And yet the Municipal League is trying to get cities to work against their own state's representatives' votes. It's very strange. Back in a minute.
Paul Harrell, weekdays from 4 to 6. Learn more at paulharrell.com.
You know, I don't know. Are there a lot of limited government people writing managed care contracts? I mean, maybe it's some. You know,
well, here's
I
the
don't
thing,
know.
and I wrote that in a post today. My beliefs, convictions, and values did not come from my political beliefs. My political beliefs sprang from my Christian background and my conservative background. My mom and dad are conservative. You know, they believed in paying for what you got. You know, they didn't overspend. You know, they believed in personal responsibility. You take control. If you fail, own it.
Yeah.
You know, if you succeed, share in your successes.
Right. Okay.
You know, so that's sort of where I got that. And, you know, I work so hard for what we have. You know, I don't like to see waste. You know, I can't stand it. And I can't stand when people say they're going to do something, but then they don't do it. Or they campaign on something, but then go out and do the the opposite.
You suggested in your comments yesterday, before the city council, or I guess on Tuesday, we played them yesterday, that, or was it on Tuesday? Right. So what's today? Thursday?
Yes, it's Tuesday.
So I played it yesterday, it was Wednesday. I'm sorry, I'm confused. But you suggested that the money that government is getting now isn't necessarily spent appropriately, or that they're wasting, in many cases, the resources we're already giving them. So why should we allow them to take $100 million or more out of our pockets?
Yeah.
That's a good point.
I don't understand that. It's like if I was a retailer, I would be almost appalled at this. Because when you've got somebody coming in, let's say I got $10 in my pocket, I would much rather have the profit margin that $10 could buy in my store than the fraction of amount of benefit that I'm going to get from a tax dollar going to the state.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and to say that is going to be something good for the retailers to take $100 million of buying power, and that's net money. That's not gross. That's net money. That is, I can spend it, you know, or I don't have to.
Yeah.
When you take $100 million out of that and shift it to the government, now I don't have any control over where that money's spent. Zero. None. I don't have an option of going and spending it at Gearhead, or going in and spending it at Skinny J's, or going and spending it at a local restaurant, or wherever. You know, I don't have that option anymore. And if I was a local retailer, I would much rather have that money in the pockets of somebody that could come and walk into my store and spend it than to have it in the coffers of Little Rock, so that they can spend it on.
You said it was a ruse in your comments, and I thought that was a perfect way, because they're trying, you know, the mayor of Jonesboro, and this is going on in other cities too, because the municipal league has all of them, you know, it's the city's lobbying arm, essentially, is what the municipal league is, and they're trying to lobby for this more money. You called it a ruse, and it is. The mayor says that e-fairness is critical to the survival of small business. And I don't agree with that at all. I think that's completely inaccurate.
I do too. Matter of fact, I know of small businesses right now that are brick and mortar that depend on their internet traffic. When their business is slow in walk-through traffic, they may be over there shipping up things that they've sold on the internet.
Yes.
And it doesn't. Every single retailer in Jonesboro has that option. They can set up an online store just like that and be in an online business. They can go and they can be an out-of-state retailer to a market in Missouri, Tennessee, Louisiana, wherever they.
What egg?
America, the birth of a new nation.
Only we can be sure of what kind of a bird it's going to be.
Tom has a point. What sort of bird shall we choose as the symbol of our new America?
The eagle. The dove. The turkey. The eagle. The dove. The eagle.
The eagle. The turkey.
The eagle is a majestic bird.
The eagle is a scavenger, a thief, and a coward. A symbol of over 10 centuries of European mischief.
The turkey.
The turkey is a truly noble bird. Native American, source of sustenance of our original settlers. An incredibly brave fellow who will not flinch at attacking a regiment of Englishmen, single-handedly. Therefore, the national bird of America is going to be
The eagle.
the eagle.
All right, 870-275-9799. What do we have here? Yes. Yeah. I got it. What does this say? What is this headline that just flashed across my desk here? Foxconn announces a $10 billion investment in Wisconsin. Up to 13,000 jobs is the headline here. Foxconn Technology Group announced at the White House Wednesday it plans to invest $10 billion to build a massive display panel plant in Wisconsin that could employ up to 13,000 workers. But then, of course, it's going to require $3 billion in subsidies from state taxpayers. $3 billion. Gosh. Happens every day, folks. Welcome to Economic Development 101, right? One of the 6 ways, one of the 6 techniques government grows. All right, back to some of this. We're going down a memory lane. We are analyzing. We got a lot to get to, but we are analyzing some pretty funny audio, especially if you like accents. State Representative Dan Douglas analyzing the internet sales tax debate that took place a couple of months ago that is still not dead because of big government lobbying arms like the Municipal League and what they're doing.
Catalog sales, that's where this started. And in 1949, in this very chamber, in this very spot, the Arkansas legislature then decided that there was unfair advantage because they weren't collecting sales tax, and they passed the use tax law, which is still in effect today. And by the way, Sears, because they did not go into the 21st century, they did not keep up with modern retailing, I've heard reports they may be out of business this year.
You see how his arguments don't make any sense? They didn't keep up with modern retailing and they might be out of business, Sears. It's kind of the same idea. You know, if you're a brick and mortar store and you're just like, I'll never sell anything on the internet, I think that's a bad mentality. I think we can see where the market is going, by the way.
Or very soon.
And if you know, instead of getting on board with this false, this really is just a false argument. If you have an internet sales tax, your business will all of a sudden flourish by the government getting more money from people that you're wanting to sell things to. Gosh, that argument is just. If you just think about it, it's really it plays itself out really quickly. Really quickly. Hang on a second.
Members, we have to bring Arkansas into the 21st century. Amazon's collecting in all but 6 states because they are passing legislation. We have to be in the 21st century. We have to pass legislation to make a fair and equitable field for our businesses. Sometimes the votes we make aren't easy. We may get emails that say, vote against this bill. I got a phone call a while ago with the woman that said, vote against this bill. Said I didn't think I could do that, but
that's because it was his bill.
Sometimes being a legislature isn't easy. Sometimes
you got to ignore those people that are calling you, telling you not to grow government.
We have to be more than the
listen to this
summer soldier.
Look at that.
And we have to do what's right to move Arkansas forward.
Sometimes you got to ignore the voters, and it's got to be the government versus the voters. Sometimes you just got to ignore them. You got to move Arkansas forward, and moving Arkansas forward means growing state government. It doesn't mean shrinking it. It doesn't mean letting people keep more of their own money.
If we want to push income tax rates down, we have to close the loopholes to where we can afford for the tax cuts. If we want to fund projects,
call it a loophole.
We have to have the revenue.
Look, if they're going to start, that's what they're going to do, you know. And that's the municipal league and municipalities. They want to call it a loophole. All right. You think it's a loophole? I'll agree with you that the state not having a mechanism to collect the use tax that is already existing, that is already owed on internet purchases. That's a loophole, sure, and I support the state. I support the state trying to collect that. It's already on the books. I support you trying to collect it. Collect it. Go on. Do it. You guys afraid? You guys worried? People maybe don't want DFNA to show up to their house or send them a letter saying they owe this money. And are you afraid that you'll get direct credit for the tax increase? You see, if you do it the other way and you try to tax out-of-state sellers and our taxes are spread out and we're more numb to it because it's every purchase and not a bill at the end of the year, you guys won't get as much blame for it. See, they actually are afraid of. See, that alone, because they could have passed that. They could have passed the one that would have required the DFNA to track you down. They didn't do it because they know that you really don't like tax increases and you don't want to pay more. And all the talk about, well, what if we raised the taxes and then immediately cut them at the same time and made it a revenue neutral? Well, technically that's not a tax cut, but they're so scared of the budget, they're so scared and they've mismanaged the money they have, they weren't even able to do that because they were terrified of not meeting revenue projections. Here's Dan Douglas opening for SB 140 back on March the 28th of this year. He's very frustrated. This was the third, fourth, or fifth time that it ran in committee, trying to get it out of the Revenue and Tax Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Committee. Thanks for your indulgence on this. We've been down the road before. I think we all know what the bill does. It says that out-of-state retailers with no physical presence in the state will collect and remit sales tax on money collected or on products sold within the state of Arkansas. We don't need to beleaguer this a whole lot. We've been down this road. We all know what it does. I just want to say this. There are no deals on the table. This is an up or down vote right here. It either lives or it dies in this committee, and it's over today. And we can either put the money in the general revenue and fight over it then, or we cannot have the revenue from this. It's up to you all. It's up to this committee. I would remind some of us that there was a vote taken yesterday to fund highways using internet sales tax. You all know who voted for that. Well, without this bill passing, there will be no internet sales tax. Yes, we will have Amazon that has voluntarily agreed to collect and remit. That might be $30 million, might be. And 15 of that, according to the bill that passed yesterday, goes to the general fund or general revenue. So they believe $15 million for highways. That would build 1 mile of interstate highway. That's really going to move the state forward. We need to look at what we're here for, and that is doing the business of the state of Arkansas and enacting our laws in a fair and equitable manner. And we have
State Representative Dan Douglas doing the business of the state of Arkansas. You know, that's such a platitude for growing government. When you hear them say that, you used to hear Barack Obama say it all the time. They say it all the time about, what was it, anytime that you reach the debt ceiling, you know, we got to do the business the government's supposed to do. And the full faith and credit of the people of the United States of America can't be held hostage from these obstructionist Republicans. Governments need to do the business that the government's supposed to do. And that's what they say. Well, we're just doing the business of the people of Arkansas. It's a platitude for well, here's the thing. What it suggests is that the government can do things that are not political. That is a lie. Okay? It suggests that the government does things, that it just operates, and enacts this or does that or administers that or presides over this that is apolitical. It's not possible. It's not possible because the government is made up of people, and people have opinions. People have agendas. It's impossible. And so we say, we just need to do the business of the people of Arkansas. Well, that business that you're referring to is actually a political philosophy that treats taxpayers like we're the Federal Reserve and can just print more money anytime they need it. So that's why I can't stand that policy. Or, I'm sorry, phrase.
We have businesses that are the backbone of our economy in this state that are suffering due to an unfair competition with online retailers that are not collecting and remitting sales tax. It's time that we do what we were sent here to do, to represent the people of the state of Arkansas and be fair and equitable and save our Main Street businesses.
Save the businesses.
And make sure we have the money to balance our budget.
Now, that was a key point back on March 28th. That's when I knew the budget really was in trouble, when you have Dan Douglas saying we got to have more money from the people in order to balance the budget. That's when I knew. That's why I wasn't really surprised when Asa ended up cutting the budget right after the session was over. Then a few moments after that, on the same day, Dan Douglas closed for his bill in the Revenue and Tax Committee, and he was a little bit more agitated.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make just a couple of comments. One, Mr. Waters said that this is an unconstitutional bill, and it is. And at the present time, due to the Supreme Court decision in 1992 of Quill versus North Dakota. But there's also another law that the Supreme Court wrote a decision on. It's called Roe versus Wade, and every time we pass an anti-abortion bill out of here, this building, we are passing an unconstitutional law.
Hold on a second, Representative Douglas. Representative Armstrong.
Point of order. Just stick to the bill, Representative Douglas.
So, every time we pass a pro-life bill, we're passing something that's unconstitutional. So you see what Dan Douglas did there, right? I'm sure he thought he was real clever when he thought about this. He admits that the bill he wants is unconstitutional according to current Supreme Court precedent, but then he says, but we pass that kind of stuff all the time when it comes to abortion, because of Roe versus Wade. Well, that's true. That's a true statement. Those are two completely different issues. I mean, one issue is about literally life or death. And the other issue is about tax policy and whether or not a business in Indiana can be taxed by the state of Arkansas when you don't have a physical presence in Arkansas. Kind of two different things. One of them is life or death, and the state has no other choice, in my opinion, but to do everything you can and fight as many court battles as you can to save as many innocent lives as you can. That's kind of what you do in a war situation, right? You try to save as many lives as you can, and so you don't really care if 9 people on a court, 9 people in black robes say that, you should be able to kill a baby. It's not really a thing. It's not really a person under the Constitution. It doesn't really have rights. When you get to that point, I don't think people care about getting a law tied up in courts. You're just trying to save innocent life. It's not near the same thing as knowingly passing an unconstitutional bill that's about how the government takes money from us. Anyway, pretty sure he thought he was real clever for that argument, though.
I was just making a point, Representative.
Bringing it home here.
Members, you know what this bill is. This is it.
Yep.
We can either fund the future of Arkansas, we can either take care of our Main Street businesses.
Or what else?
Or we can just say to hell with it.
Oh.
So this is your choice.
my best part. That's the funniest part. Well, you fund our Main Street businesses, or well, we can just say to hell with it. That's your choice. And then, of course, let's see. Are we almost done here? Oh, yeah. This is just two Dan Douglas clips, unrelated, just because they make me laugh.
There's four of the biggest fears to man are dying, conspiracy theories, change, and that's what this is. It's a little bit of change, and people are scared of change because you don't know what's going to happen. Under this, you do know what's going to happen because it's spelled out what can and what cannot happen, and what can change and what cannot change. The fourth thing that man fears is a mad wife. But with that, I would appreciate a good vote, and thank you, committee, for your indulgence.
He wasn't done, though.
Recognized to present HB 1725.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, committee, and I guarantee you this one doesn't have anything to do with highways or tax increases today. It's just the opposite. Although I've had people say it's a power grab, it's a trying to steal money, but it is nothing near that. The propaganda is rampant.
Doing here, we've had several bills come before us that try to, that are combining agencies, and we keep hearing that this is the tone of this administration to bring efficiencies to state government. So does this align with, what we're seeing with other bills that are bringing these efficiencies as we, combine agencies?
If I might, Representative Douglas, sounds like I'm talking to myself.
Yeah.
I might ask Miss Amy Fetcher to come down here and join us with the governor's Department of Efficiency. Miss Amy.
Ms. Fetcher, if you don't mind introducing yourself for the record, you'll be recognized.
And for the record, I always try to get a good-looking woman sitting beside me.
Gosh.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is...
Yeah, bless her heart. Yeah, so that was Dan Douglas hitting on the governor's head of government efficiencies, or whatever they're trying to call it now. It was just, anyway, excellent front man to pass all the tax and gas tax increases. We're going to take a break. We'll be back in just a moment.
Whether you're looking for a small desktop copier and printer, thinking about adding color to your documents, or considering a document management solution, Total Document Solutions is there to help. In business for decades, Total Document Solutions is an independently owned company that specializes in the ability to provide a high level of service in Northwest Arkansas, the Arkansas River Valley, Southwest Missouri, and Southeast Kansas as an exclusive Platinum Authorized Sales Agent for the Xerox Corporation. At Total Document Solutions, they offer customers technology services to improve business results. Their dedicated sales team has the unmatched industry knowledge, professionalism, and expertise needed to address the unique challenges of your business. Total Document Solutions is independent, local, and well-connected to serve your office products and document needs. Call them today at 479-575-0770. That's 479-575-0770 for your Total Document Solutions.
Do you need conservative legislation killed?
Or do you need policies enacted that ensure government growth?
Then you need to get
Nephewed. Hi, I'm nephew number 1 of uncle, nephew, and nephew, attorneys at law. I'm not a lawyer, but I am a senator.
And I'm nephew number 2, and I am a lawyer and also a senator.
Are you the victim of a recent accident in which the voters in your community mistakenly elected a limited government conservative who is now actually implementing the ideas he or she campaigned on?
That's right, nephew number 1. Don't be a victim of democratic elections any longer. At Uncle, Nephew, and Nephew, we are committed to killing limited government legislation and promoting bills that increase the size of government by using any tool at our disposal.
Because sometimes the truth of the matter is, principles get in the way of pragmatism.
Just listen to some of our great testimonials.
Ever since I've been using the nephews, all my special interests have been served. As long as you make sure your contract says lobbying services are prohibited, then the legal services of uncle, nephew, and nephew are legal. Trust me, put the nephews on them.
Came out of nowhere. I was blindsided last election cycle when my well-funded and paid-for politician lost to some grassroots limited government voters. But then I hired the nephews, and they killed all the conservative policies the voters wanted. I got nephewed.
I got nephewed too, and so can you.
Uncle, nephew, and nephew will accept compensation via campaign contributions.
Put the nephews on them.
PHP Parody.
About filling chuck holes. I heard somebody say this morning, I was talking to them about it, and they said, what about the single mom at home with 2 kids that's just barely getting by? I'm going to ask her for a fuel tax increase. Well, the price of fuel varies so much. I remember last summer I paid $1.65. It's $2.05, $2.10 right now. Fluctuations in fuel price are part of the everyday life that we live with. But what's more troubling to that single mom is whenever she hits a chuck hole or chug hole, whichever one you want to call it, pothole.
I don't know if I've ever heard it called that, but whatever.
And they run a tire, they knock the front end out from under their car, and it costs them $100 or several $100s to repair it. That's more devastating to her than a fuel price increase at the pump. And my final remark, I was presented this bill in the Transportation Committee the other day, and after it passed out of the Transportation Committee overwhelmingly,
this is the gas tax.
I did what a lot of us do, especially when we get older, Representative Hendren. I went into the men's room, and as I was standing there staring at the wall, as we all do, I heard a voice beside me.
Pretty sure the ladies don't do that.
No, it wasn't. But it was a man that said, now listen to this, listen to this. The man said, one thing you didn't mention was the safety aspect. He said,
I'm telling you, I'm pretty sure Dan Douglas is living the movie Fight Club. It's just like less exciting. Like there wasn't anybody there at the urinal. He was he was just having a conversation with himself. Oh man!
Then there's that guy in the stall who's hearing Dan talk and kind of leans down to look, see who he's talking to, and there's no one around.
I got a listener. Janet just texted and said, "I can't handle anymore, Dan Douglas." I'm sorry. I know it's been like the whole hour. I know. But it's this. We got to get through the urinal story. I mean, you know, as I was standing and staring up against the wall, I heard a voice. I mean, good grief. And you're in front of all your colleagues in the House. I heard a voice.
I thought of something else that might have been really funny if it actually had happened. Dan wasn't actually at the urinal. He was at the sink, and he's looking in front, and he sees himself, and he thinks he's talking, and someone's talking to him as the mouth moves.
Yeah. Yep, I'm telling you, it's like that movie Fight Club where the guy's, you know, it's split personality. He told me what a great idea the gas tax.
I was a first responder.
I'm sorry. Okay, we're done. All right, 870-275-9799. That is the telephone number if you would have contributed.
Let me tell you about the internet tax. Let me just explain this to you.
We are going to wrap things up here. We got one more hour coming your way next. The Liberty Machine rolls on. Back in a minute.
Rush, Glenn, Sean, and Paul. This is Jonesboro's 1013 FM News Talk, KBTM.
Paul Harrell, weekdays from 4 to 6. Learn more at paulharrell.com.
You want to be Bangkok, it doesn't matter, you know.
Right.
So it doesn't matter. So they could be an out-of-state retailer if they wanted to be, and if they wanted to focus on that.
Yeah.
You know, but sometimes that's not their business model.
I know.
You know, that's not their business model.
And it's like,
and if it is, that's great.
Mm-hmm.
Go for it.
Yeah, and they say that they claim that it's e-fairness. I made the point yesterday, though, that it's not fair, though, because if you're in Indiana and all of a sudden now you're paying this unconstitutional sales tax, by the way, the Supreme Court, I mean, right now the precedent is you can't make them pay, so they're in many cases they're asking. Now, if the resolution is asking for them to collect the existing use tax that we're supposed to self-report, which I understand you said, Bobby, that you think that we should do away with that. If people, is that correct? That if we're considered tax cheats right now because of that?
Tax evaders.
Tax evaders.
Yeah, tax evaders.
Yeah.
Here's my suggestion. Here's what I did. You know, and my dad always said, you know, if you're gonna present a problem, offer a solution. So my solution is, let's just do away with it. You know, let's make Arkansas somewhere where people want to go and buy. Let's make Arkansas someplace where consumers have the power. You know, to where if we want to see our city grow. Matter of fact, we had it was called a revenue enhancement. You know, not long ago. In other words, it was across the board fee hikes, you know, on pretty much everything. But the part of it that got people just all up in arms was the stormwater drainage fee.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that was going to be assessed.
Like
and
$5 a person.
Yeah, I think it just sort of hit the fan and it died.
Washed away.
It washed away.
No pun intended.
Right now.
That's a lie.
You know, right now,
pun
but
intended.
it probably will come up again in the future.
They always do,
Yeah,
right? See this whiteboard?
do.
Our whiteboard. Run it till it passes. They do that down in Little Rock. That's for example,
Yeah.
down in Little Rock, internet sales tax fails, right? So what do? Well, then you know, Asa, by the way, Governor Hutchinson says he doesn't want to call a special session. He doesn't want to call a special session to pass internet sales tax. But the Municipal League is getting all these cities to pass these resolutions. They want to get to like 300 out of 500 at least. And then Asa Hutchinson, this is what it's going to be. He's going to be like the girl that's like, you know, to her boyfriend of like 5 years. When are you going to propose to me? When are you going to propose to me? When are you going to propose to me? And then he finally says, all right, you know, will you marry me? And she's like, oh my goodness, you proposed. I'm so surprised. That's what Ace is. He's going to be like that. He's like, oh wow, I didn't realize all these cities wanted me to call a special session. And then he'll call the special session.
And the thing about it is, you know, these are going to be resolutions from the city council who are supposed to be a representation of the city in which they serve. So when he gets all those, he can say, hey, you know what? I wasn't going to call it, but the overwhelming, you know, cry for this, you know, I had no other choice. Had no other choice.
Yeah, I know. That's what they do.
It,
and then they run it till it passes. They take an idea that's
Yep.
defeated, and then they find a way to bring it back.
get it.
And that never happens when we're talking about shrinking government. There was a great bill to really reform the way we do elections and ending special elections unless you have severe circumstances. And that's a really good, I feel like, method to make sure you have the most accurate reflection of what the consent of the governor is, because more people show up to vote when you have a general election than these special elections. And it failed, right? It failed because of a state representative who thinks he should be a senator. His name's James Sturch, and he walked out after he had voted for the bill. Then he walked out. It's a whole thing. We've talked about it many times. But notice that doesn't get run and run and run until it passes. They don't do that for things that limit government or protect the taxpayers. They only do it for things that are going to give the government more money. And it really comes down to this. You said, why in the world would I ever, as an elected official, knowing if it was put to a vote of the people, right, it would completely fail. Why would I ever then vote to do that? Well, I think it's because they're listening to different sources. You know, they're not really listening to the people. They're listening to special interest.
Well, and I think they've also got their focus off of possibly what they need to have their focus on. You know, when you become an elected official,
It's all right.
When you become an elected official, you're in essence a servant of the people.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but when you become a servant of the tax dollar that does that, then you get that and you serve that.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes I think people just need to refocus
Yeah, I
and
agree.
think, what am I here for? Am
Yeah.
I here to secure as much money as I possibly can, even though I do it at the cost of what I told the people that I would vote for and do?
Yeah.
So I think you have to almost readjust yourself and say, okay, you know, I'm here for the people. I'm here for the people that put me in the seat. I said before, I said municipal league didn't put me here. You know, they didn't vote me in.
That was good.
You know, the people did. And there's absolutely no way on God's green earth that I was going to vote for that thing.
That was awesome. It was a great speech, and I love your facts. I love that you used some of David Crow's numbers.
I did.
About how big Arkansas government is and how we got to get that under control. But you were here, I guess you got here about 4:45. You're listening to my segment on Obamacare, private option, things like that. But mostly about just this, you know, the idea of incentives and
The maintenance of a free society is a very difficult and complicated thing, and it requires a self-denying ordinance of the most extreme kind. It requires a willingness to put up with temporary evils on the basis of the subtle and sophisticated understanding that if you step in to do something about them, you not only may make them worse, but you will spread your tentacles and get bad results elsewhere.
I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers. If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
You're listening to the Paul Harrell Program, brought to you by Conduit Media Group.
Hey, folks, welcome to the program. Thank you so much for being with us today. It is the intersection of conservative ideas and reality. And we are building a liberty machine. If you want to call us or text us, the number is 870-275-9799. That's 870-275-9799. If you want to know why we are having such a hard time repealing Obamacare or replacing Obamacare, the only thing that you have to listen to really is Governor Asa Hutchinson, back when he was at the Republican Governors Association last year, or maybe earlier this year. I think it was right after Donald Trump had won. It was somewhere in there where he said this. Oh, Joe, I'm gonna need my control back, please. If you can help me out, can you give me? All right.
These are things that we now have an opportunity to revisit, but we have to get it right, because in 2018 I'm up for re-election again. Now,
this was audio from a report that was done, and I'm pretty sure there was also Rick Scott was in this. It was a National Public Radio report, and I'm going to find you the exact date on this, because it was at least it was November. Okay, so I was right. November 28th, around the 28th of November, 2016. Is when this Governors Association report went out about, NPR. And here's the full clip of this NPR report with Florida Governor Rick Scott. And I'm just going to let you know this, Florida and Rick Scott, they have rejected Obamacare in their state as much as they can, whereas Arkansas has not. Listen.
But Florida Governor Rick Scott warned it won't be easy.
The empire will strike back. The people that make money off the existing system, the people don't want change. They're plotting every day to try to stop what we know we have to do to turn this country around.
Scott is one of the governors most outspoken in his opposition to Obamacare.
Now, that alone, the people making money off this will plot every day.
People that make money off the existing system, the people don't want change. They're plotting every day to try to stop what we know we have to do to turn this country around.
I mean, think about that for a second. Think about that. What we have to do to turn this country around. And then think about Governor Hutchinson's statements about how we can't have the Obamacare repeal and replace because it shifts too much cost to the states. What is he saying? Well, he's saying the people like Blue Cross and Blue Shield that are getting rich off of the current status quo of taxpayer money going to their companies, guaranteed, are going to fight this tooth and nail.
But Florida Governor Rick Scott warned it won't be easy.
The empire will strike back. The people that make money off the existing system, the people don't want change. They're plotting every day to try to stop what we know we have to do to turn this country around.
Scott is one of the governors most outspoken in his opposition to Obamacare. Others, like Tennessee's Bill Haslam and New Mexico Governor Susana Martinez, embraced some parts of the law and expanded Medicaid in their states. Martinez says it's important that a comprehensive Republican alternative plan be ready before Obamacare is repealed.
There's going to have to be a transition and never leave everyone uninsured.
On replacing Obamacare, Arkansas Governor Asa Hutchinson injected a little personal political realism into the discussion. Hutchinson said Trump and congressional Republicans need to take a thoughtful approach in how they deal with mandates and health care exchanges, key parts of a program that provides coverage for some 20 million Americans.
These are things that we now have an opportunity to revisit, but we have to get it right. Because in 2018, I'm up for re-election again.
Arkansas Governor Asa Hutchinson from an NPR report, November 28th, 2016. This was right after the country and the world were shocked that Donald Trump won. A lot of people were hopeful. Fast forward to this July 26th story. We're now 7 months in to Donald Trump's presidency, and the headline is that the Senate on Wednesday rejected an amendment to gut Obamacare without a replacement ready to go, a bill identical to a 2015 measure that passed Congress. Senators voted 45 to 55 on the measure, with 7 Republicans and all Democrats voting no. The Republicans voting no were Senators Shelley Capito, Susan Collins, Dick Heller, John McCain, Rob Portman, Lamar Alexander, and Lisa Murkowski. Only Collins voted against the measure back in 2015. The Senate vote is from the Washington Examiner, is part of a larger debate on how to repeal and replace Obamacare. The bill was expected to fail as many Republican senators were uncomfortable with voting on repeal without an immediate replacement. The bill is an identical bill to a 2015 measure that passed Congress that would gut Obamacare's taxes and mandates but leave in place insurer regulations. The bill would have let Obamacare stay in place for 2 years while a replacement was crafted. Former President Barack Obama vetoed the legislation in 2015. This is the same measure, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, that when asked on MSNBC back on June 30th whether Asa Hutchinson supported a clean repeal, because that's what Donald Trump was urging, he said he didn't think it was a good idea. The Senate leadership took up the bill as part of a debate on repeal that was started in a narrow vote Tuesday. A vote for a bill that would have repealed and replaced Obamacare immediately. The Better Reconciliation Act also failed late Tuesday. The goal of Republican Senate leaders appears to be to vote on a skinny repeal of only Obamacare's individual and employer mandate and medical device tax. The skinny repeal, as they're calling it, would serve mainly as a vehicle to start a conference with the House to iron out a new health bill. But whether or not they have the votes to do anything, I don't know, folks. I do know one thing. Whatever this, I'm going to let you listen to this again, because this is exactly the battle we knew we were going to face, and we know that the healthcare industrial complex doesn't want less government intervention; they want more. And the people at the top of this heap are the ones waiting for government jobs when it all crashes down and people demand full socialized single-payer health care.
But Florida Governor Rick Scott warned it won't be easy.
The empire will strike back. The people that make money off the existing system, the people don't want change. They're plotting every day to try to stop what we know we have to do to turn this country around.
Scott is one of the governors most outspoken in his opposition to Obamacare. Others, like Tennessee's Bill Haslam and New Mexico Governor Susana Martinez, embraced some parts of the law and expanded Medicaid in their states. Martinez says it's important that a comprehensive Republican alternative plan be ready before Obamacare is repealed.
There's going to have to be a transition and never leave everyone uninsured.
On replacing Obamacare, Arkansas Governor Asa Hutchinson injected a little personal political realism into the discussion. Hutchinson said Trump and congressional Republicans need to take a thoughtful approach in how they deal with mandates and health care exchanges, key parts of a program that provides coverage for some 20 million Americans.
These are things that we now have an opportunity to revisit, but we have to get it right. Because in 2018, I'm up for re-election again. These are things that we now have an opportunity to revisit, but we have to get it right. Because in 2018, I'm up for re-election again.
The phone number, if you want to call us or text us, let us know what you think, is 870-275-9799. That's 870-275-9799. In other news, but related news, health insurers here in Arkansas have now proposed rate increases, nationally, I guess, ranging from nearly 8% to 22%, starting in 2018 for thousands of Arkansans covered through the marketplace set up under the federal health care law. This happens every year. And the insurance department here in Arkansas always tries to flex their muscles. Last year, there was a really awkward exchange when they were asking for more money. They were asking for rate increases. And then all of a sudden, the insurance department, along with the governor, said, no, those aren't going to be the increases. And, if you'll remember, there was even a leaked document, I believe, on a website that we broke the story about these rate increases and got that document out there. People were scratching their heads. Anyway, health insurers have proposed rate increases. The insurance department released the proposed increases on Wednesday and said it has until August 16th to approve rates for the coming year. Governor Asa Hutchinson praised the increases as among the lowest in the country and credited the state's hybrid Medicaid expansion for keeping the increases low. You know, the system that, you know what, you should, because I got that press release from Asa where him saying our increases are among the lowest in the nation. Just reinterpret that. Here's the translation. Woohoo. 1/3 of our state's on Medicaid expansion. I mean, that's great news. 1/3 of your population is on a welfare program. Great. Andrew DeMilla goes on. More than 300,000 are on the program, which uses Medicaid funds to purchase private insurance. Average increase proposed 7.8% by Blue Cross Blue Shield, 9.9% by Better, and 21.9% by QualChoice, 22% by QCA Health Plan. There we go. That is the headline there. Insurers propose rate increases for Arkansas marketplace. Now, here's the thing with all of this. We need to decide. My decision is, I think my decision is made perfectly clear. But we need to decide if we need to change the license plate. Instead of the natural state, I think we should be the welfare state or the Medicaid state. Or maybe say the Medicaid magnet state. I don't know. But right now, there's a lot of incentives for people to move here so that working Arkansans can take care of them. 870-275-9799. Back in a minute, folks.
This is Dan Sullivan with the Liberty Moment. Government is not the author or source of our rights, and you don't make America great again by giving one man in Washington all the power. We make America great again by recovering a constitutional republic where Washington is populated by people who are servant leaders who want to return power to the people and communities. Because what makes America great again in this country are its Rotary clubs, small businesses, churches, schools, fire departments, and little leagues across this land. God bless the people who hear this truth. Senator Ben Sasse.
Paid for by Sullivan for Arkansas. Whether you're looking for a small desktop copier and printer, thinking about adding color to your documents, or considering a document management solution, Total Document Solutions is there to help. In business for decades, Total Document Solutions is an independently owned company that specializes in the ability to provide a high level of service in Northwest Arkansas, the Arkansas River Valley, Southwest Missouri, and Southeast Kansas as an exclusive Platinum Authorized Sales Agent for the Xerox Corporation. At Total Document Solutions, they offer customers technology services to improve business results. Their dedicated sales team has the unmatched industry knowledge, professionalism, and expertise needed to address the unique challenges of your business. Total Document Solutions is independent, local, and well-connected to serve your office products and document needs. Call them today at 479-575-0770. That's 479-575-0770 for your Total Document Solutions.
Do you need conservative legislation killed?
Or do you need policies enacted that ensure government growth?
Then you need to get
Nephewed. Hi, I'm nephew number 1 of uncle, nephew, and nephew, attorneys at law. I'm not a lawyer, but I am a senator.
And I'm nephew number 2, and I am a lawyer and also a senator.
Are you the victim of a recent accident in which the voters in your community mistakenly elected a limited government conservative who is now actually implementing the ideas he or she campaigned on?
That's right, nephew number 1. Don't be a victim of democratic elections any longer. At Uncle, Nephew, and Nephew, we are committed to killing limited government legislation and promoting bills that increase the size of government by using any tool at our disposal.
Because sometimes the truth of the matter is, principles get in the way of pragmatism.
Just listen to some of our great testimonials.
Ever since I've been using the nephews, all my special interests have been served. As long as you make sure your contract says lobbying services are prohibited, then the legal services of uncle, nephew, and nephew are legal. Trust me, put the nephews on them.
It came out of nowhere. I was blindsided last election cycle when my well-funded and paid-for politician lost to some grassroots limited government voters. But then I hired the nephews, and they killed all the conservative policies the voters wanted. I got nephewed.
I got nephewed too, and so can you. Uncle, nephew, and nephew will accept compensation via campaign contributions.
Put the nephews on them.
PHP Parody.
Now then, attend, as friend to friend, our declaration committee. For us I see immortality in Philadelphia City.
What is this? Is this a poll out Talk Business and Politics Hendrix College survey of more than 500 Arkansas voters tested in efficacy, Republican effort to repeal? Listen to this. Senate Republicans have discussed a plan to repeal the Affordable Care Act now and replace it 2 years from now with a yet-to-be-determined plan. Do you support or oppose this? Their results of 500 Arkansans say 52% oppose just a repeal now, 30% support, 18% don't know. Listen to this. Should the federal health care plan retain money for Medicaid expansion as used in Arkansas for the Arkansas Works program, formerly called the private option? Their results, 36% yes, 20% no. These are not even close to the numbers that we have, and I'm going to talk about them tomorrow on the program, the numbers that we have from the survey that we directed you to on this program last week on Obamacare. They conducted this. I don't believe this for a second. I don't believe these numbers for a second because, quite frankly, I know sometimes these surveys are not done on. See, was this likely voters or was this registered voters, or was just what? Just anybody you call up? Dr. Jay Barth, professor of political science at Drake College, helped craft and analyze the latest poll. Trump months have been ongoing efforts. Problems of plurality. 46% of GOP voters do endorse it, while pluralities of independents, 44% opposition. I need some time. Here's the methodology. This is what I'm looking for. This survey was conducted on Thursday, July 20th. The poll, which has a margin of error of plus or minus 4.3%, was completed using an IVR survey technology among 511 Arkansas voters. What's IVR tech? Joe, will you Google for me IVR survey technology? What does that mean? I do not know. Anyway, folks, the bottom line is this. I'm telling you, I just completely disagree with this. I think that the people of Arkansas, you just look at the elections, you look at the issues, people don't want Obamacare anymore. They want to be able to afford their premiums, and they understand why they can't afford their premiums. They understand that deductibles are so high, you might as well not even have insurance. They understand that that is accredited to Obamacare. And this this is how I know this whole Medicaid expansion mess. I mean, I don't know what did everybody who I don't know, what's the percentage of people who work for Blue Cross Blue Shield or hospital executives that filled out this survey or were called? That's what I'd like to know. I'm sorry. Yeah, these are accusations. I have no proof of them whatsoever. I don't believe it for a second. I mean, do you not remember Barack Obama saying if you like your plan, you can keep it 22 plus times and it being a complete lie? Do you not remember that they bragged about 7 million people gaining insurance, but 3.5 million of those lost it because of Obamacare and were forced off their plans? The people out there who, because they don't do asset testing for Medicaid, that had really good insurance, but it might have been expensive and they were happy to pay because they had the money to pay. Their insurance plans got canceled and they got forced onto Medicaid. I know for a fact that that's happened to several people because, I don't know, it doesn't make any sense to have somebody actually paying out of their pocket. You'd rather the government because they can make more money that way. This has been one giant scam after another, and I just believe that the people of Arkansas know it. And, yeah, there are 300,000 Arkansans who are on the private option, Arkansas Works. There were only ever supposed to be 215,000. Now, let me tell you this right now. How many of these people that filled this out are on Arkansas Works? I'd love to know. Why isn't that a poll question? Are you on Arkansas Works? How many people of the people you called to the 500 are on Arkansas Works? That'd be a good question to ask so that maybe we could, I don't know exactly how to interpret these results, because presumably you've got at least 330 or at most 330,000 Arkansans that have an interest in seeing government continue to grow or at least stay the same size. Go ahead. What does that mean?
Okay, IVR, it stands for interactive voice response, and it's typically used.
Interactive voice response.
Survey type. It's a pre-recorded automated phone survey in which the customer responds vocally or to questions or types numerical responses using the keypad. So you would call into this place. So like, let's say it was a survey.
They would call you, robocall.
Or you would call the phone number if you want to take the survey itself.
You can do that?
I would assume so. Like if they wanted your response, they would either call you or you would call them.
That's interesting.
And it would get...
I hadn't thought of that. So, I mean...
So what it does is it asks you questions. And
if you could call into the survey, that'd be a nice little email to send out to folks. Hey, we called into the survey. Let us know what you think. I mean, that's. But see, then I don't think they'd do that. I think they'd probably just robocalling. They have a list.
People who really want to take surveys, who have an opinion.
I don't know.
Would do this.
I just don't know. How would you get the number, though, I guess is the question.
They would just give it out.
Yeah.
It's as simple as someone going, hey, call this number for pizza.
Yeah, that's true.
Call this number to take a survey about this.
Interestingly. So you're saying that if they have it, they didn't do that publicly. They didn't do that in this case, we know. Or at least that we know of, they didn't do that. That's all I'm trying to say. But
here's the thing. If they were to give the number out publicly, it may sway their numbers because you may get people who have a different idea than you.
Right. But
so you would only want to call people who
Most of the time it works with just a robocall, though. They've got a list of numbers and they robocall them out. I've never heard of it done the other way, but if that's possible, then
Well, what I'm saying is, like, if it's a political view, they're only going to call people who share their views to sway their numbers.
Or they just, and the way they do that these days is you don't call likely voters. You end up calling, registered voters are just really any list you can get your hands on.
Paul Harrell, weekdays from 4 to 6. Learn more at paulharrell.com.
Welfare programs.
Right.
And you were telling me something. Now, you're going to have to show your age here. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
But you said
I'm okay with that.
All right, that's fine. You're a kickboxer. By the way, Bobby Long is a kickboxer. So if you try to pass the internet sales tax, he's just going to kick it in the face. In the face. All right, so you graduated from A-State.
I did.
In 1989. 89. I thought you said 85.
Well, I graduated BIC in 85.
Okay.
Went to college. It was during my college
years. Well, in 85,
years.
I was 1, so.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, all
You've
right.
already said that.
I know.
See,
I
that's the thing.
I just wanted to say it again. I wanted everyone to know that. All right.
That's terrible.
Our producer, our board op, he wasn't alive then.
You were not alive in 85?
93?
Oh, wow.
You were born in 93.
Oh,
my goodness. Okay, now I feel old.
Okay,
all right.
The tail end of 93, December 30th of 93.
So it's really 94. Okay, so
That's getting worse.
So tell me about what you were a hard worker. You had a job while you were in school.
Right. I grew up, a small Mississippi County town, Leachville. And gosh, I didn't know anything but work. My dad, I remember when I would mow the churchyard, he would take me out, drop me off with the lawnmower, and then he would go off somewhere, and I would just be sitting there with the lawnmower. And I would mow the churchyard. He'd come back and pick me up, And so I was in the cantaloupe fields when I was 14, graduated to watermelons when I was 16. So I didn't, I just worked for my money, because I knew that if I didn't, I wouldn't have any.
Yeah.
So when I got to college, first thing I did was I got a job at a grocery store. And the summer before I started school, I started working at a grocery store. And when I was going to college 2 years in, before I would go to work, if I had the opportunity, I'd go down to Earl Bell Community Center and play basketball. Well, I was down there with some friends, and I was playing basketball one day, and I noticed there were a lot of adults out there playing ball, and I got to looking around. I thought, it's the middle of the day. You're supposed to be at work. So I had to talk to some of them. I said, well, what do you do? Do you work at night? What do you do? I said, no, I'm on disability.
Back in 1985.
I said, you're on disability? You just dumped. How does that work?
Oh gosh, what a problem! I mean, that just.
And I had to leave early, so I could get to work.
Yeah.
And then go to school.
Wow. That's crazy. What and see and that's an issue. That's an issue. That's people exploiting the system and things like that. And anyway, so Bobby Long, I appreciate it, sir, coming on the program. I appreciate what you did. And where does it go from here? I mean, now it's past 8 to 4, and hopefully Asa won't call a special session.
He won't. But the good thing about it is, I'll be watching and I'll be looking.
Yeah.
And I'll be looking over things. And if there's something that comes up like this in the future, it just doesn't have to be about this.
Yeah.
It can be about anything.
If there are any city councilmen listening across the state right now, and your city's trying to do something similar, going to do the municipal league's bidding, and I would love to talk to you. I'd love to have you on and let me know what we can do to help. I
believe that video is even up on your.
Yeah.
Is it up on your?
Yeah, we've got Bobby Long's clip, his video, and what he said and the information he had is up at our Facebook page. I retweeted it as well. It's facebook.com/Paul Talk Show. Check it out. Alderman Bobby Long, we appreciate it, sir.
Great. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Love to have you on again soon. Folks, we're going to take a break. Back in just a moment.
Eagle's going to crack the shell of the egg that England laid. Yes, so we can tell on this humid Monday morning in this congressional incubator.
And just as Tom here has written, though the shell may belong to Great Britain, the eagle inside belongs to us.
And just as Tom here has written, we say to hell with Great Britain, the eagle inside belongs to us.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. All right, so seriously, so TalkBusiness.net, they're out with another poll, Talk Business and Politics, Hendrix College survey. This, to me, discredits their the last results of their poll that we just talked about, that the Arkansans don't want. Majority of Arkansans oppose repealing and replacing later. Their other question, quote, your current congressman is Republican and is up for re-election in 2018. If the election were today, would you vote to re-elect him, or are you open to another candidate? 36% said I would re-elect my current congressman. 58% said I'm open to another candidate. 6% don't know. Now, first of all, what kind of question is that? I mean, there's a lot of people that are open to other candidates. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, well, yeah, I keep an open mind. You never know what's going to happen between now and then. But that doesn't – you understand that? That's the first thing. But number one, do you honestly believe that 36% are like, no? I mean, when you look at you look at the margins. Look at the margins. People like Steve Womack win by, Bruce Westerman, Rick Crawford, French Hill. It always gets a little closer for him because – of Pulaski counties in his district. But you know what I'm saying? Like, this is ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Why now? Because they're trying to pressure Tom Cotton. Asa Hutchinson, ladies and gentlemen, has signaled to the statewide press to go bananas. John Brumman himself wrote, Arkansas should panic, because they are to the left of Mitch McConnell and Paul Ryan. Because Asa, he's begging Tom Cotton and he's begging John Bozeman to do the one thing they promised to do when they ran statewide elections, which was vote against Obamacare, to get rid of it, over and over and over again. Anyway, it's crazy. I saw that during the break. I thought to myself, yep, that exposes the poll for being, polls. First of all, have any of the polling people took responsibility for being complete failures during last year's election? Has that even happened? I'm going to assume the answer's no. The reason I'm saying that is because with a lot of these polling people, they go hand in hand with the media. And the media certainly hasn't been like, whoa, we really are out of touch with the rest of the country. We might want to get back to actual journalism instead of just being shills for big government and liberalism. We might want to get back to actual journalism and just reporting the facts and let the people make up their minds and put the facts together, than trying to make the socialist Marxist chalkboard charts from your professors at Ivy League schools a reality in today's society. We might want to give up on that and instead actually just try reporting the news. I mean, it's just a thought. Just a thought. What do we have over here? This was looking for the PDF. Yeah, this is interesting. So the AP's Scott Bauer has a piece on this new announcement about Wisconsin getting this Foxconn plant. Concerns are increasing among lawmakers and others in Wisconsin over the incentives the state is offering to become the first U.S. home of Taiwanese electronics giant Foxconn. Little has been revealed. If you go on down here, it says that Governor Scott Walker has refused to confirm that he's negotiating with Foxconn. But the story that I read, this was today at 2:03 a.m. this morning, but the story that just came out said that the incentive package the state's going to provide was like $3 billion is what I read, which is just a gargantuan sum of money. It's a $10 billion investment by the company, but it would require up to a $3 billion subsidy from state taxpayers. That is wild to me that that's being considered. but apparently it's a thing now. I mean, it's a big news. I think Donald Trump, he had a press conference about it. Is that what happened? Wisconsin plant to employ thousands. And Wisconsin was competing with Michigan. They were competing with Texas. And this is what, folks, you just got to know, on principle, I'm completely against state tax dollars going to give money to private companies. I just think it's atrocious. I think people on the left, they got a big problem with corporate welfare, sometimes only when it has to do with oil companies, and I do as well. But then you don't ever hear them talk about how ridiculous this is when we're talking about private companies. And look, I know I'm a minority in this. I absolutely know I'm a minority in this. But the Arkansas Center for Research and Economics has some great research on how this stuff actually doesn't work. And I don't think it's a good idea. Now, at the same time, the reality of the situation, I don't ignore the reality of the situation, is that all these other states are doing it too. The difference is when Texas is doing it, right? Texas has everything else going good for them, like good regulatory environments, low taxes, and things like that. And it really just goes to show you that, like, we can't really even compete very well, even when we are trying to put the icing on the cake, because the cake's bad. Now, this is not my own analogy. Lieutenant Governor Tim Griffin has a fantastic speech that he's given multiple times about Arkansas's cake. And what he says is Arkansas's cake is bad. And if you have a bad cake, it doesn't matter how much icing that you put on it. Matter of fact, you put so much icing on it, it's just gross. Who wants just to eat nothing but icing? If the cake is bad, it doesn't matter what kind of icing. So it doesn't matter what kind of incentives that you give. If your cake is bad, that's the fundamental reason you're eating it, right? So it's a really great speech, and I agree with it. And as much as I can't stand the icing, I can't stand the picking winners and losers, I can't stand the incentives. I certainly would agree with people that are okay with the icing if they'll just agree with me that, like Tim Griffin says, the cake is bad. And we've got to throw it away completely and redo it with a blank sheet of paper or with brand new raw ingredients. And that makes everybody in the state of Arkansas extremely nervous. Extremely nervous. Because everybody starts thinking, oh no, am I not going to be able to get mine, right? Do you remember a couple of weeks ago we played for you clips from the economic tax farce? It was the Economic Committee on Economic Policy or whatever they're calling themselves. And you had, I believe it was Senator Hickey, talking about how we need to be real careful about talking about which tax loopholes and tax incentives that we're going to do away with. We need to be real careful because, that might get people really upset. That might get people, talking about things that we ought not be talking about in public. Remember when he said all that? Speaking of that, and speaking of the Arkansas Center for Research and Economics, there's a guest piece in the Democrat Gazette by Nicole Keating, who's an economist for the Center for State Tax Policy at the Tax Foundation, and Jeremy Horpendahl, the professor at the University of Central Arkansas and scholar at the Arkansas Center for Research and Economics. Speaking of them, their piece in the Arkansas Democrat Gazette talking about that very thing, cutting Texarkana's tax exemption. Many people don't know this, but Texarkana, Arkansas, stands as a rebuke of Arkansas's tax policy because that city wouldn't be what it is if it had to compete with Texas's policy. Listen to this. As the task force of Arkansas lawmakers contemplates how to overhaul the state's tax code, one senator is already jockeying to protect a local exemption. State Senator Jimmy Hickey represents a district encompassing Texarkana, and some of his constituents have a special deal. They are exempt from the state's income tax. Senator Hickey argues that repealing the Texarkana exemption would cause residents to move to the income tax-free Texas side, but that ignores the bigger picture. His commentary doesn't account for the burden from other local taxes, nor does it justify keeping the exemption in place. Instead, it's a symptom of a much larger problem with Arkansas's tax system, which is littered with special provisions that create an imbalance in how Arkansans are taxed. So imagine this with me for a second. Can you imagine if we got rid of the income tax and you didn't have to shock this town of Texarkana, but you got rid of the income tax here in Arkansas? What that would do to the rest of the state and the economy, putting more money in people's pockets? Folks, I'm sick of paying it. Every quarter I've got to pay my federal income tax estimates, and then I got to pay my state, and I can't stand it. I can't stand paying my state income tax. It's infuriating to me. I already got the federal government that thinks it's their business, not only how much money I make, but how I make it. And I've got the state that just goes along and shares the same values, that it's their business. It's none of their business how much money I make. It is literally my business how much money I make. You want to tax me? You tax me when I voluntarily need something, when I voluntarily buy something. Don't tax me by force. It just, consumption taxes are the way to go. I want to drive. Okay, that's a privilege. You can tax me to drive, right? There's gas taxes that I pay when I go to drive. I pay a tax to register my vehicle. All these things, you can do. That's all voluntary. But, I don't know. I find it personally offensive that the state of Arkansas thinks it is their business to be in my business. Wouldn't it be amazing if DF&A just didn't have to worry about income taxes anymore? Would we need the DF&A anymore? Maybe they'd be running down people for collecting sales taxes that they haven't been paying on the internet. Article goes on. Under Act 28 of 1977, Texarkana residents were given an option to exempt themselves from the state's individual income tax, now topping at 6.9%. The residents obviously chose this path, and in exchange, they pay an additional 1% point in the state sales tax. This trade saves taxpayers in the city a great deal, but costs the rest of the state millions. 2016, the lack of an income tax in Texarkana cost the state $16.6 million in net revenue. That means all other Arkansans pay more in taxes. A closer look at the data also calls into question whether the tax break provides much of a benefit. Eliminating the exemption doesn't immediately spell tax flight from Texarkana. While Texas has no individual income tax, Texans face an effective property tax rate that is 2.5 times higher than Arkansas's. For the median taxpayer, that amounts to an extra $1,149 in annual real estate taxes, $1,149 in annual real estate taxes, according to the Census Bureau. Instead of eliminating the tax disparity between Texas and Arkansas, the exemption simply shifts the disparity to the city limits. Those concerned about what might happen to Texarkana without the exemption can take a look at another border city in Arkansas with a similar divide. The metro area of Memphis also straddles our state's border, with West Memphis falling in Arkansas and Memphis falling in Tennessee. Like Texas, Tennessee does not have a personal income tax. West Memphis residents, however, do not receive an income tax exemption like their Texarkana counterparts. Following Senator Hickey's reasoning, West Memphis should be depopulated from tax avoidance migration, yet West Memphis is still home to more than 25,000 residents, just a few thousand less than Texarkana. And there are at least 6 other metropolitan areas in the United States with some portions in no-income tax states. None get income tax exemptions, and none are completely depopulated. Interesting point. One possible explanation is that there's a large difference in effective property tax rates between Memphis and West Memphis. The effective rate in West Memphis is just 0.59% compared to the effective rate of 1.60% in Memphis. Residents of West Memphis could be attracted to the lower property tax rates, among other benefits of Arkansas. The rate difference in Texarkana is even larger. In 2015, Texans paid 1.77% in effective property taxes compared to the 0.67% paid in effective property taxes by Arkansans in Texarkana. To ignore this, along with numerous other considerations, misses the nuances in why individuals choose to live where they do. Now, Senator Hickey has a point. Total taxes are higher in Arkansas than Texas. The Tax Foundation's state local tax burden report finds that Arkansans have the 17th highest tax burden in the country, while Texans have the 46th highest. But even given that, the income tax exemption still isn't good policy. Ideally, the state would seek to provide tax relief for all residents, not just those in Texarkana. Exemptions like this make real, comprehensive tax reform more difficult. The Arkansas tax code needs reform. The state's last comprehensive tax reform came in 1971. An almost 50-year-old tax code does not serve the state well and harms its competitiveness. As we wrote in our book last year, Arkansas, The Roadmap to Tax Reform, the Texarkana exemption is an explicit acknowledgement of the state's inferior tax code. Trying to fix the issues within just the city limits of Texarkana does nothing to improve the tax climate for almost 3 million Arkansans who don't live in Texarkana. The legislature should focus on improving the tax code for all Arkansans, not just the few in one border city. At a time when legislators are considering eliminating exemptions in the state's tax code, the Texarkana exemption should be at the top of the list. Taking exemptions off the list before the process even begins is a sure way to kill good tax reform. Pursuing broad and equal reforms makes for better policy than keeping an efficient exemption in place. And I agree with that. I really do. And I know that there's this push down there to try to eliminate these loopholes and exemptions, but I'll tell you this much. The tax reform tax farce better not recommend revenue-neutral policies. They better shrink the size of government. And I don't think they're going to do it. I think they're going to protect the revenue coming in at all costs, and they're going to claim a tax cut when in reality they're just going to be shifting from one base to another. I would like to see the state government shrink and us receive tax money as a result. More of our allowed to keep more of our money. We got to take a break. Back in a minute.
Do you need conservative legislation killed?
Or do you need policies enacted that ensure government growth?
Then you need to get
Nephewed. Hi, I'm nephew number 1 of uncle, nephew, and nephew, attorneys at law. I'm not a lawyer, but I am a senator.
And I'm nephew number 2, and I am a lawyer and also a senator.
Are you the victim of a recent accident in which the voters in your community mistakenly elected a limited government conservative who is now actually implementing the ideas he or she campaigned on?
That's right, nephew number 1. Don't be a victim of democratic elections any longer. At Uncle, Nephew, and Nephew, we are committed to killing limited government legislation and promoting bills that increase the size of government by using any tool at our disposal.
Because sometimes the truth of the matter is, principles get in the way of pragmatism.
Just listen to some of our great testimonials.
Ever since I've been using the nephews, all my special interests have been served. As long as you make sure your contract says lobbying services are prohibited, then the legal services of Uncle, Nephew, and Nephew are legal. Trust me, put the nephews on them.
It came out of nowhere. I was blindsided last election cycle when my well-funded and paid-for politician lost to some grassroots limited government voters. But then I hired the nephews, and they killed all the conservative policies the voters wanted. I got nephewed.
I got nephewed too, and so can you.
Uncle, Nephew, and Nephew will accept compensation via campaign contributions.
Put the nephews on them.
PHP Parody.
Do you need to advertise your business product or service, but not sure what the best choice is? Folks, allow me to introduce you to talk radio. You're listening to it right now. Talk radio is one of the most unique mediums in all of advertising because it actually works. It gets the information you want to the people you want to get it to. And by the way, those people are educated, well-informed decision makers of their household, and most of them have disposable income. If this is a target audience for your business, then you have to consider advertising on my show, The Paul Harrell Program. We have options for most any budget and can provide you with exciting opportunities to grow your business. We can put your message across the state, or we can help you locally. Call 870-275-9755 if you have any questions. That's 870-275-9755, or visit my website, paulharrell.com, and click on Advertise.
Just got an email. Hang on, I got to click. Oh, great. I'm over at the Arkansas Municipal League. No, I'm not being talked about. They would not. No. It's just a website. It's a news release on their press release page. The Arkansas Municipal League presents new officers at their 83rd convention. See, when was this dated? Hang on one second. Do we have a date on this? It says June. Okay, so is this old? Hang on a second. I think this might be. Yeah, this is not the right link. Anyway, I have an email. Let me just go back to the email then. Is that a clickable link? Arkansas Municipal League named Senator Jim Hendren its Person of the Year. Arkansas Municipal League at its 83rd convention. So this is maybe old news. Named Jim Hendren its Person of the Year. The league periodically presents the award to a person who during the previous year has made a special contribution to advancing the goals and objectives of the league and its members. It's just timely. I didn't actually know that. That showed up in my inbox, so somebody's listening to the program and we talked about this the first hour. It is remarkable that the government is so against the people of Arkansas. The Municipal League undermining the people's vote, undermining the people's representatives that defeated the internet tax, now trying to get it resurrected. And then the Highway Commission, a government bureaucracy that is now going against the people's representatives and trying to get the very proposal that failed in the legislature onto the ballot anyway. It is really remarkable to see the cause and reaction of these big government politicians and people who are in leadership. I want to remind everybody that this program that you're listening to right now can't happen without you listening, number one. And number two, is available for rebroadcast at paulharrell.com. If you want to go back and listen to it, right, then you can do that at paulharrell.com. Video archives. You can get our podcast there. You can also get it on SoundCloud. You can also get it on your iTunes store. If you go to your iPhone and go bring up your iTunes store and click subscribe, and you'll get it every day in 2-hour segments. And while you're there, don't forget to purchase our Liberty Machine t-shirts. They are $20. Shipping is free. And you can help us build the Liberty Machine by wearing part of the Liberty Machine. And when people say, hey, what's that shirt about? You tell them, hey, I'm listening to this guy. He's giving me information about Arkansas news that you get nowhere else. Do that now at paulharrell.com. Folks, that's the show. We'll see you tomorrow. And I want to remind everybody, I know it's Wednesday, but for our new affiliate, KFPW, you just need to be getting ready for Friday, because on Fridays we do something called Johnny Cash Friday. So send me your request. Go ahead and think about what kind of Cash song you want to hear, because that's what we do on Fridays. We'll see you tomorrow. Arkansas, be safe.